The sound echoed through the marble lobby like a gunshot. Benita froze. Her mop slipped from her trembling hand, water spreading beneath her worn shoes. Her cheek burned red where Johnson Amadi's palm had landed, and for a second she couldn't breathe. Everyone in the lobby, the receptionist, the security guard, the early staff stood still, eyes wide, mouths open. The billionaire CEO of Johnson Group had just slapped a janitor. Johnson's chest rose and fell fast. His eyes were full of anger, his designer suit perfectly pressed, his wristwatch shining under the fluorescent lights. "Next time," he barked, "watch where you're cleaning. You almost splashed water on me. Do that again, and you'll regret it." Benita's lips quivered. I'm sorry, sir," she whispered, her voice shaking. He gave her one last look of disgust and turned to leave. But as he did, his eyes caught something strange, a mark, shaped like a tiny crescent moon, behind Benita's left ear. He froze. That mark, that rare birthmark. He had seen it before. He blinked, his mind racing. It can't be. The Morice family's mark? No. Impossible. He quickly brushed the thought aside, tightening his jaw. "Clean this mess," he muttered coldly, and walked toward the elevator. The silence that followed was heavier than the slap itself. Bonita stood there, tears rolling down her cheeks, her palm pressed against her burning face. The humiliation cut deeper than pain. She had come to Lagos with hope, not to be treated like trash. The crowd slowly dispersed, whispering behind her back. "Did you see that?" The CEO slapped the new janitor. "It is a laugh-to-striking stun. She's lucky she wasn't fired on the spot. She's been so hard-working too, poor woman." Benita turned away, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. Her reflection in the shiny glass door looked like a stranger, tired, heartbroken, yet quietly burning inside. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, "You can slap me, Mr. Johnson, but you have no idea who I really am." Earlier that morning, the sun had barely risen when Benita left her small apartment in Age. Her 8-year-old son, Daniel, was still asleep on their thin mattress. She bent over, tucked the blanket around him, and kissed his forehead. "Be a good boy, okay? Mommy will be back soon," she whispered. Daniel mumbled, half asleep. "I love you, Mommy." Benita smiled faintly. "I love you too." She locked the door, carrying her cleaning supplies in a small bag. The air outside smelled of rain and exhaust. Lagos was awake, restless as always, buses honking, traders shouting, and traffic already building up on the expressway. By the time she reached Johnson Group headquarters, the traffic had delayed her by almost an hour. Normally, she arrived before dawn, cleaning every hallway before anyone walked in. But that day, fate decided to play a different card. She rushed inside, tied her apron, and began mopping the marble floor of the main lobby. Her head bent, her heart racing. And then, everything spiraled out of control. Inside Johnson's office, on the top floor, Johnson Amadi stood before a glass wall, staring down at the city that had made him a billionaire. His face looked calm, but his mind wasn't. The board had been pressuring him for weeks. The company's profits were falling, and rumors were spreading that Johnson Group might soon lose its biggest investors. But Johnson was proud, too proud. He refused help. He refused to believe his empire could fall. And now, the last thing he needed was some cleaner making him look bad in front of staff. That's what triggered the slap. Not just anger, ego. He poured himself a glass of water and tried to shake off the unease that kept creeping up inside him. That birthmark. It was so familiar. It reminded him of someone he once met at a business party years ago, Chief Morice's daughter, who mysteriously disappeared after a family scandal. She had the same crescent mark behind her ear, but Johnson brushed it aside. "Coincidence," he muttered, grabbing his phone. Downstairs, Benita quietly walked into the janitor's storage room. Her eyes were dry, now calm, almost too calm. She reached into her small handbag and brought out an old iPhone with a cracked screen. She dialed a number. It rang once before a deep voice answered. "Yes, Ma?" Benita's voice was steady, emotionless. "Sam, it's time. Bring the officials. Make sure the documents for the full acquisition of Johnson Group are ready." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "Understood, Ma." She ended the call and exhaled slowly. Her hands trembled slightly as she placed the phone down. "You think you're untouchable, Johnson," she whispered. "But the game has just begun." Moments later, outside, the sound of engines echoed through the compound. 4 black SUVs rolled in one after another, their tinted windows glinting under the morning Sunday. The security guards rushed out, confused. Workers peeked through windows, whispering, "Who are these people? Are we being raided?" "Those are government plates." Johnson stepped out of the elevator, adjusting his tie, his face tight with irritation. When he saw the vehicles, his stomach dropped. What's going on? Then, stepping out from one of the SUVs, was a man in a dark suit, Sam Oden, the businessman who had recently made the final payment for Johnson Group's new ownership deal. Johnson's heartbeat quickened. He walked briskly toward Sam. "What are you doing here? I thought you said the transaction was private." Sam smiled slightly. "It is, sir. But the new owner asked me to complete the formal takeover in person." "The new owner?" Johnson frowned. "You mean you're not the buyer?" Sam shook his head. "No, sir. I only represented her." "Her?" Johnson repeated, confused. "Who?" Before he could finish, the sound of footsteps made him turn. Benita, the janitor, was walking toward them. Her blue uniform was slightly wet, her apron still tied, and her cleaning gloves tucked into her pocket. Security moved forward to stop her, but Sam raised a hand. "Let her through." Johnson glared. "What is this? Why is the janitor here? Get back to your duty post before I—" Sam interrupted calmly. "Sir, she is the new owner." The world seemed to stop. Johnson's mouth opened, but no words came out. You're joking, right?" he said, forcing a laugh. "Her? That's ridiculous." Benita stopped a few feet from him. Her face was calm now, cold, almost royal. The same woman he had slapped minutes ago now looked at him with the eyes of someone in control. "I didn't buy this company to destroy you, Johnson," she said softly. "You were drowning in debts. I wanted to help to save what you built. But today, you showed me who you truly are." Her voice grew stronger. "You slap people because you think you're above them. But sometimes, the one you look down on is standing right above you." Johnson's legs went weak, his chest tightened. He looked around, but everyone, the staff, the guards, the managers, were all watching, in stunned silence. Benita turned to Sam. "Proceed with the handover." "Yes, Ma." As she walked past Johnson, she paused, her voice low. "Next time you raise your hand against someone, make sure they don't own the ground you're standing on." The lobby fell into a heavy silence once more, and that's when Johnson noticed her birthmark again, clear under the sunlight. The same crescent moon mark of the Morice family, the dynasty that once owned half of Lagos. His lips trembled. "Who exactly is this woman?" he thought, his throat dry. But before he could ask, Benita looked back at him and said quietly, "You'll find out soon enough." Then she walked into the elevator, leaving behind a billionaire who had just slapped away his own destiny. The elevator doors closed behind Benita, and the world outside seemed to stop breathing. Johnson stood there, numb, as whispers rippled through the marble lobby. His employees, people who once feared him, now stared in disbelief. The mighty billionaire CEO, the man who ruled over them with iron pride, had just been humbled by a janitor. Only, she wasn't just a janitor. Benita Morice. The name returned to him like a thunderclap he couldn't escape. Upstairs, in the now silent executive conference room, Benita removed her gloves and placed them neatly beside her. Sam followed closely, handing her a slim folder filled with documents. "Everything is ready, ma'am. Once you sign, the full ownership transfers under your name, Morice Holdings Limited." Benita nodded, flipping the first page. Her hand paused for a second as she looked out the glass wall, down at the crowd forming below. Her reflection stared back at her, the same tired face, the same eyes filled with pain and memory. "I never wanted this to happen like this," she said quietly. Sam tilted his head. "Do you want me to call it off?" Benita shook her head. "No. Some lessons must be learned the hard way." She looked down again, the crescent-shaped birthmark behind her ear, faint but visible in the reflection of the window. For years, that mark had been her curse, a secret she hid beneath scarves and wigs. It was the last reminder of a family that once ruled Lagos business circles, and the same family that threw her away. 14 years ago, Benita had been 24, full of dreams, living in her father's mansion in Ikoyi. Chief Morice, her father, was one of Nigeria's richest men, a name that opened every door, but behind those gates was a house built on lies and betrayal. Her father had married 2 wives. Benita's mother was the first, gentle and kind but powerless. The second wife, Stella, was ruthless, hungry for power and control. When Chief Morice fell ill, Stella manipulated him to change the company's documents, cutting Bonita and her mother out of the inheritance. Bonita had fought back. She'd confronted Stella in the family hall that night. "You're destroying everything Father built," she screamed, tears burning her cheeks. But Stella only smirked. "Your problem, my dear, is that you think blood guarantees love. In this world, money wins." That same week, Bonita's mother was thrown out. Days later, Bonita discovered her father's death certificate was forged weeks before his actual death. When she tried to expose Stella, men showed up at her door one night. She barely escaped with her life. From that day, the world knew Chief Morice's only daughter had died in a car accident. Stella's plan was complete. But Bonita didn't die. She ran. She changed her last name. She became invisible, and now, years later, she stood in the same kind of glass office she used to walk through as a child this time, not as an heiress, but as the woman who had rebuilt herself from nothing. Johnson stormed back into his office, slamming the door so hard the glass shook. His heart pounded. His mind raced. "How is that possible?" he muttered. "She's a janitor. She can't be that Bonita." He grabbed his phone and called his assistant. "Tunde, get me everything on that woman. Every record, every background check. Now." Within minutes, a file arrived in his inbox. Johnson scanned through it, or tried to. Most of the information was fake. An untraceable address, no family listed, just a small note about her working in a church charity before joining the cleaning agency. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. "Morice," he whispered again. "If that name is real, then I've just slapped the daughter of Lagos's most powerful dynasty." A knock on the door broke his thoughts. "Sir," Tunde said quietly, peeking in. "The board members are waiting. They heard about the incident in the lobby." Johnson's chest tightened. "Tell them I'll be there soon." As the door closed, his phone buzzed with another message. From Sam Oden. Message: "Please meet us in the main hall. The new owner wants to address the staff." Johnson's throat went dry. "She's going to humiliate me in front of everyone." He stood up, buttoning his suit jacket, straightening his tie. But even as he walked out, his hands trembled. The main hall was packed. Every employee from junior clerks to senior managers stood shoulder to shoulder, murmuring. The company banner hung above, Johnson Group building tomorrow today. But today, the tomorrow they'd built was gone. Then, the elevator dinged. Benita stepped out. She wasn't wearing her apron anymore. She had changed into a simple cream blouse and dark trousers. Her hair was neatly tied back, and a small diamond pendant rested at her neck. The mark behind her ear caught the light again, small but unmistakable. Every whisper stopped. Sam followed behind, holding a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "please welcome the new owner of Johnson Group, Mrs. Benita Morice." The hall erupted in gasps. Someone dropped a file. A few whispered prayers. Johnson stood frozen at the back, pale and speechless. Benita took the mic. Her voice was calm, soft, but firm. "When I walked into this company a week ago as a janitor," she began, "I wasn't here to impress anyone. I came to understand the people who truly make a company run: the cleaners, the guards, the staff who are never seen but keep everything standing." She paused, her eyes finding Johnson in the crowd. "But today, I was reminded of what power can do to people. It blinds them. It makes them forget that respect isn't for the rich, it's for the human." The room was silent, except for her voice. "I didn't buy this company to destroy it," she continued. "I bought it because it deserves better leadership. Leadership that listens. Leadership that remembers kindness." She placed the microphone down, looked directly at Johnson, and said quietly, "Mr. Amadi, I'll see you in my office after this." And with that, she turned and walked away. Rain began to fall outside, the kind that made the city lights blur through the windows. Johnson sat in his office, waiting. His pride, once his armor, now felt like chains. The door opened softly. Benita walked in. For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain filled the silence between them. Finally, Johnson said, "I was wrong." Benita said nothing. He looked up at her. "I didn't know who you were. I didn't know what you'd been through. She cut him off gently. "You didn't have to know who I was. You just had to be kind." Her voice broke a little, but her eyes didn't. "That's the problem with people like you, Johnson. You only respect power, not people." He lowered his gaze. Shame filled his face. Benita turned to leave, then stopped by the door. "You'll still work here," she said. "But not as CEO. From tomorrow, you'll report to the new operations director. It is not for the fluke." He looked up, startled. "You're keeping me?" "For now," she said quietly. "Let's see if you can learn to be human again." Then she walked out, leaving him with nothing but the sound of rain and a heart that finally understood what true power looked like. But Benita didn't know something yet. Someone was watching her closely from a black car parked outside the building. Someone who had sworn she would never rise again. The night Lagos sky glittered faintly with the glow of streetlights and headlights moving like fireflies through rain. Inside a sleek black Mercedes parked across the road from Johnson Group headquarters, a woman sat watching through the drizzle-smeared windshield. Her eyes, cold, sharp, and painted in shadow, didn't blink. On her wrist gleamed a silver watch, engraved with 2 letters, S.M. Stella Morice. She took a slow drag from her cigarette, exhaled, and whispered with a smirk, "So, the little girl I buried 14 years ago found her way back." Her driver said nothing. He didn't dare. Stella flicked the ash into a glass tray and leaned back. "Benita Morice, you're back in Lagos, wearing janitor uniforms, buying companies. How clever." She smiled thinly. "But you made one mistake. You should have stayed dead." The rain had stopped by dawn, but the storm inside Johnson's chest had only grown worse. He sat quietly at his desk, in what used to be his office, staring at the framed photograph of his late father. All his life, he had believed pride made him powerful. But now, pride had left him powerless. The door opened. Sam stepped in, holding a folder. "Morning, sir." Johnson didn't look up. "Don't call me that anymore. I'm not your boss." Sam smiled faintly. "Maybe not in title, but she asked me to tell you something." Johnson frowned. "What?" She said, "Tell him redemption begins with humility." He sighed. "Redemption." His voice cracked. If only it were that easy. Downstairs, whispers filled the halls again. Some pitied him, others laughed quietly behind his back. The man who once terrified the entire staff now walked among them as one of their own, a humbled man under new leadership. And yet, beneath all that humiliation, something unexpected began to grow inside Johnson. Respect. Upstairs, the once untouchable CEO office had been transformed. Benita replaced the gold decorations with soft white lilies and framed photos of community schools and charity programs. The same hands that once mopped the floors now held meetings with investors. The same woman who once begged for a job now signed paychecks. Still, she carried humility like a badge. Every morning, she greeted the cleaning staff before anyone else. She smiled at the guards. She asked the secretaries how their children were doing. One morning, an old janitor named Mama Tenny stopped her by the lobby. "Madam Bonita," she said, voice trembling, "thank you for making this place human again. Nobody ever looked at us before you came." Benita smiled warmly. "We all deserve respect, Mama. Titles don't make us better. Hearts do." She walked away, but her heart felt heavy. Behind her calm face, she still carried the scars of betrayal and the fear that one day the past would come knocking. 2 nights later, it did. Benita was leaving the building late, carrying her handbag and a few files when her phone buzzed. A message popped up from an unknown number. "Is greater than, hello little sister," still wearing that ugly birthmark proudly. Benita froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Only one person ever mocked her that way. She turned toward the glass doors, and through the faint rainlight, she saw it, the black Mercedes idling across the street. Her breath caught. "Stella," she whispered. A shadow moved inside the car. The tinted window slid down halfway, and for just a moment she saw her perfectly dressed, pearls at her neck, the same cruel smile she'd last seen years ago. Stella mouthed 2 words across the road, "I'm back." Then the car drove off, melting into the Lagos night. Benita stood there, trembling. For years, she'd dreamed of facing Stella again, not as a helpless girl, but as a woman who'd rebuilt her life. But she hadn't expected it to happen this soon. The next day, Benita called Sam into her office. "She's back," she said quietly. Sam frowned. "Who?" "Stella Morice." Sam's eyes widened. "The stepmother." Benita nodded. "She won't stop until she ruins everything." Johnson Group was once part of her late husband's investment chain. If she finds out I bought it through Morice Holdings, she'll try to reclaim it. Sam folded his arms. Then we have to protect the documents, make everything airtight. It's not just documents, Bonita said, staring out the window. She'll come after people. Everyone close to me. Sam hesitated. Including Daniel? At the mention of her son, Bonita froze. Her mind replayed his small smile that morning, the way he'd hugged her before school, his innocent voice saying, "Mommy, will you come to my school play today?" She swallowed hard. "I'll protect him, no matter what." Inside a luxury penthouse in Banana Island, Stella poured herself a glass of wine. Across from her sat a man in a grey suit, cold, calculating. "You said you wanted her gone," he said. "Permanently?" Stella swirled the wine, smiling. "I don't need her dead. Not yet. I just need her to lose everything again." She thinks she's smart, but she forgot how the Morice family plays. She handed him a file. Inside were photos, Benita cleaning floors, Benita in the lobby, Benita slapping her ID card at the gate. The man flipped through the pictures and smiled. "You want me to leak these?" Stella nodded. "Let the world think she scammed her way into the company. Let Johnson Group burn with her name on it." The man closed the file. "It'll be done." As he stood to leave, Stella said softly, "Oh, and one more thing. Find her son. Bring him to me." The next morning, chaos struck like lightning. News blogs screamed headlines. "Is greater than fake heiress caught in billionaire scam." Benita Morice lied about identity to take over Johnson Group. Janitor turned CEO faces fraud investigation. The building buzzed with confusion. Employees whispered in corners. The board called an emergency meeting. Sam rushed into Benita's office, holding his phone. "Ma'am, the news someone leaked false reports. They say you used forged documents." Benita grabbed the phone, scanning the screen. Each line cut like a blade. Her name, her son's name dragged through the mud. Her hands shook. "It's Stella. I know it." The door burst open. Two government officials walked in, flashing ID cards. "Mrs. Benita Morice," one said sternly. "Yes," she answered slowly. "You're needed for questioning regarding financial irregularities in the Johnson Group acquisition." Johnson, standing at the doorway, watched in disbelief. "This can't be happening." Benita turned toward him. For a moment, their eyes met, once filled with anger, now bound by something deeper. Realization. "I told you," she whispered, voice trembling. "Kindness is power. But some people only understand chaos." They took her away as the staff watched in stunned silence, but as she stepped into the black SUV, she caught a glimpse of a child's photograph on her phone, Daniel, smiling in his school uniform, and suddenly her heart sank. There was another text, just received, from an unknown number. "Is greater than, if you want to see your son again, don't talk to the police." Benita's world went cold. Rain pounded against the tinted windows of the SUV as it drove Benita through the wet streets of Lagos. The two officials sitting beside her said nothing. Their faces were blank, their uniforms spotless, but something about them didn't feel right. Their silence was too heavy, their eyes too cold. Benita's instinct screamed. She gripped her purse tightly, her mind spinning through the last message she saw on her phone. "Is greater than, if you want to see your son again, don't talk to the police." Her son, Daniel, her entire world, 8 years old, smart, sweet, and innocent. He was supposed to be at school right now. But that message, how would anyone know she had been taken unless they planned it? Her chest tightened. This isn't an investigation. It's a trap. The car should have headed toward the federal complex in Marina, but halfway through, it turned left toward the outskirts of the city. Benita leaned forward, her voice steady but sharp. "This isn't the direction to the government office." The driver didn't respond. The man in front just said, "Madam, relax. Orders from above." Her fingers itched toward her phone inside her bag, but one of the men noticed. "No calls," he said coldly. "Company policy." She swallowed hard and looked out the window. Rain streaks blurred the city lights, and her reflection stared back at her calm face but trembling eyes. If they took Daniel, a tear slipped down her cheek. She whispered under her breath, "Please God, keep him safe." Back at Johnson Group headquarters, chaos had turned into panic. Sam stood with Johnson in the conference room, both staring at Benita's empty office. Her phone was still on the table, screen flashing missed calls. "She's been gone for over an hour." Sam said, pacing. And the officials who took her, none of them checked in with the real task force. I called the anti-fraud unit myself. They have no record of any investigation. Johnson's eyes widened. Then who took her? Sam's voice lowered. Someone who knows how to fake authority. Johnson clenched his fists. His heart was pounding with guilt and fear. Stella, he muttered. It must be her. Benita mentioned her name yesterday. Warden, he grabbed his car keys. We're not waiting. We're finding her ourselves. Sam nodded. And I'll call a friend in the DSS. If Stella's involved, she'll make one mistake and we'll be there when she does. The SUV finally stopped outside an old warehouse on the edge of Epa. Benita's stomach sank as the guards dragged her inside. The air smelled of damp wood and dust. The lights flickered dimly, and she could hear the soft hum of a generator somewhere in the back. Then she saw him, Daniel. He sat on a wooden chair, his wrists loosely tied, his little face stained with tears. Mummy, he cried out the moment he saw her. Benita's knees almost gave out. Daniel! Baby, I'm here! But before she could reach him, a voice echoed through the shadows. Touch him, and you both die. The figure stepped forward, heels clicking against the concrete floor, dressed in a tailored black gown, pearls gleaming on her neck. Stella Morice emerged like a ghost from the past. Benita's breath caught. Stella, well, Stella said with a smirk, circling her like a hawk. The dead heiress returns from the grave. You really thought you could take everything I built? Benita's voice cracked, but stayed steady. You built nothing. You stole it all father's name, his company, our home. Stella laughed softly. Oh, child. You were always too sentimental. That's why you lost everything back then. And why you're about to lose again. She motioned to one of her men. Show her. The man handed Benita a tablet. On the screen was a live news broadcast. The headline read, Is greater than Johnson Group CEO arrested for forgery and insider scandal. Is not the me. Benita's mouth fell open. That's fake. I never. Oh, but the world believes it, Stella said, her smile widening. Within hours, your accounts will be frozen, your charity licenses revoked, and you'll be nothing again except this time, I'll make sure no one helps you rise. Benita's voice trembled, but her eyes burned. You can destroy my name, but you'll never break me. Really? Stella leaned closer, her perfume chokingly sweet. Then watch what happens when your son disappears just like you did. Daniel whimpered. Mommy, I'm scared. Benita's heart shattered. She lunged forward, but the guards blocked her path. Let him go, Stella. This is between you and me. Stella sighed, bored. You always had too much heart, Benita. Unfortunately, heart doesn't win wars. Power does. Suddenly, the man who'd been guarding the door spoke up. Madam Stella, he said hesitantly, if she's truly from the Morice bloodline, maybe we should… Shut up, Stella snapped. But it was too late. Benita turned to him and said, You don't believe her? Look at the birthmark. The guard frowned. What birthmark? Benita tilted her head, pulling her hair back to reveal the small crescent-shaped scar behind her ear. The man's eyes widened. I've seen that mark before, he whispered. In the portraits inside the old Morice mansion. Benita's voice rose with emotion. That's right. My father gave it a name. The mark of legacy. Only his real blood carries it. Stella doesn't have it. She forged her way into our empire. The room went still. For the first time, Stella's confident expression cracked. You think a mark makes you legitimate? That scar means nothing. It means truth, Benita said softly. And truth always wins. Before Stella could respond, the sound of engines roared outside. Tires screeched. A flash of red and blue lights reflected through the dusty windows. DSS, a voice boomed. Hands up, nobody move. Gunfire erupted. The guards scrambled. Stella's men drew weapons, but before chaos could explode, the warehouse door burst open and Johnson ran in beside Sam and two security operatives. Benita, Johnson shouted. Here, she cried, shielding Daniel behind her. A DSS agent fired a warning shot into the air. Everyone drop your weapons. Stella tried to flee, but Sam caught her by the arm. Not so fast, madam. Her face twisted in rage. You'll regret this, she screamed, but her words were drowned out as she was dragged away in handcuffs. Benita dropped to her knees, clutching Daniel tight. The boy sobbed into her arms, trembling. "Mummy, I thought I'd never see you again." She kissed his forehead again and again, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe now, my love. You're safe." Johnson approached slowly, guilt heavy in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "For everything, the slap, the disrespect. You didn't deserve any of it." Bonita wiped her face, still holding her son. "Sometimes life uses pain to teach us what pride hides," she said softly. "You've learned yours, and so have I." But just when peace returned, as Stella was led into the police van outside, she smirked through the rain. "Enjoy your victory, Benita," she hissed. "You still don't know the whole truth." Benita turned, frowning. "What truth?" Stella leaned forward, her voice dark. "Ask yourself who really gave you that birthmark. Chief Morice wasn't your father." The officers pushed her inside before she could say more, and the van drove off into the night. Benita stood frozen in the rain, her son clutching her tightly, the words echoing in her mind like thunder. "Chief Morice? Wasn't my father?" The rain had stopped by morning, but Lagos still wore the scars of the storm. Dark puddles shimmered across the street outside Johnson Group headquarters. Benita stood by the glass window of her office, staring at the city she'd fought her whole life to survive. Stella's last words wouldn't stop echoing in her head. "Is greater than. Chief Morice wasn't your father." Those words had pierced through every wall she had built, every truth she had lived by her family name. Her inheritance, her identity now trembled like dust before wind. A knock came at the door. Sam entered, holding an envelope. "Ma'am, the police recovered this from Stella's penthouse. It's addressed to you." Benita turned slowly. Her fingers trembled as she took it. The paper was old, the handwriting familiar, elegant, strong. She knew it instantly. "Chief Morice." She opened it carefully, afraid to breathe. Inside were 2 sheets. The first was a letter dated years ago. The second was a DNA report. She began to read. "Is greater than my dear Benita. If you are reading this, then the storm I feared has come to pass. I know the truth cannot stay hidden forever, but I wanted to protect you, not from shame, but from danger. You are not my biological daughter. Your mother, Grace, was already carrying you when I met her. She told me everything, and I chose to love you as my own. I gave you my name, my home, and my world because blood may build a house, but love builds a family. Your real father was a man of honor, my closest friend, Jonathan Amadi." Benita's eyes widened, her lips parted. "Jonathan Amadi." She looked up sharply at Sam. "Jonathan Amadi? The same surname as..." Sam nodded slowly. "Johnson Amadi's father." Her world tilted. She reread the next line, her voice barely above a whisper, "Is greater than. If one day our paths cross again, tell Jonathan, I kept my promise that I raised you like the daughter we both dreamed you'd become." Her hands shook. "Johnson, he's my brother," Sam exhaled. "Half-brother, yes. You both share the same father." The truth hit her like lightning. Cruel, bright, and irreversible. The man who slapped her. The man she exposed. The man whose company she took over in vengeance was her blood. Benita sat down slowly, the room spinning around her. Her thoughts flooded back to every look, every word, every argument with Johnson. The pride, the anger, the strange familiarity she had once ignored. Now it all made sense. The way his voice had reminded her of someone she couldn't place. The ache in her heart when she saw him broken. It wasn't revenge that hurt her anymore. It was blood. Sam's voice broke the silence. "What will you do now?" Benita folded the letter gently. "The truth doesn't destroy. It frees. I need to tell him and make things right." That evening, Johnson stood alone in the hospital corridor. One of the guards injured during the rescue was being treated inside. He looked exhausted, shirt unbuttoned, eyes red from sleepless nights. Benita walked in quietly, the letter clutched in her hand. He turned. "Benita." She took a deep breath. "There's something you need to know." He frowned, unsure. "About Stella?" She shook her head. "About us." She handed him the letter. Johnson hesitated, then began to read. His eyes moved slowly across the lines. With each sentence, his expression changed: confusion, shock, disbelief, then stillness. When he reached the name Jonathan Amadi, his hands trembled. He looked up at her. Voice hoarse. "This says my father is your father." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. Half-siblings, you and I. Johnson took a step back, as if the floor had disappeared. All this time, I slapped my own sister. Benita's lips quivered. You didn't know. Neither did I. He sank into the nearest chair, burying his face in his hands. God, what have I done? She knelt before him, her voice breaking. We were both blind, you by pride, me by pain. But we can't let the past destroy what we have left. He looked up, his eyes wet. What do we have left, Benita? She placed her hand over his. Family, and a chance to rebuild it the right way. Weeks passed. Stella was convicted for fraud and conspiracy. Her empire crumbled overnight. Bonita cleared her name publicly, showing the real documents, the recordings, and the truth about Stella's crimes. But she didn't gloat. She never mentioned the slap, the humiliation, or the revenge. She rebuilt Johnson Group, now renamed Amadi Morice Holdings, with a new mission. Respect, compassion, redemption. Johnson served as managing director, Benita as chairperson. Together, they turned the company into a foundation-driven empire, investing in education, hospitals, and job creation for single mothers and janitors across Nigeria. One afternoon, as she walked through the renovated lobby, she paused by a new golden plaque mounted on the wall, is greater than, dedicated to those who were once unseen, but never unworthy. She smiled softly. Daniel came running toward her, waving a drawing. Mummy, look, it's you and Uncle Johnson. She laughed, kneeling to hug him. That's beautiful, my love. Johnson approached from behind, chuckling. He even gave me more hair than I have. Benita laughed through her tears. He's kind, like his grandfather. Johnson's tone softened. You've forgiven me, haven't you? She looked at him gently. I forgave you the moment I learned we shared the same blood. Because forgiveness doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. He smiled faintly, eyes glistening. Then maybe we both got a second chance. Months later, a cool evening breeze swept through the city as Benita stood at her father's grave in Ikoyi. The marble stone read, "Is greater than Jonathan Amadi. A father in love, not in blood." She placed fresh white lilies at the base and whispered, "Thank you for choosing me, for teaching me what true family means." Beside her, Daniel held her hand. Johnson stood silently behind them, head bowed. The sun dipped low, painting the sky with gold. Benita turned to her son and smiled. "Let's go home, Daniel." He looked up innocently. "Home, where we belong." She nodded. "Exactly." As they walked away, her heart felt lighter than it had in years. The city that once broke her had now become her crown, and for the first time, Benita Morice Amadi, the single mum janitor who was once slapped, shamed, and betrayed, walked into her destiny, not as a victim, but as a victor. If you like this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.